Data, data, data. How am I supposed to make bricks without straw? Sherlock Holmes said that once upon a time. And we all know we need data. We all know that we want to be data driven. But here's the problem. We don't have a lack of data. We've got too much. We need a better way to get the right data and then turn it into insights. Well, that's exactly why I'm bringing on today's two guests. They are both from Bear Cognition. So Bear Cognition, what the heck is that? It's a data intelligence firm. They provide specialty systems, tools, and services involving advanced data connections and collection, gap analytics, a bunch of fancy stuff, optimizing technology. Here's the mission, though. Bottom line, Bear Cognition is about to simplifying the increasingly complex world of data and analytics. Their goal is to help understand what has happened, what's likely to happen, and then what action to take to achieve your goals. So joining me today on Good Morning Market from Bear Cognition are Ian Schenkel. Did I get it right, Ian?
That's perfect. Ian Schenkel.
Schenkel. All right. Ian Schenkel, the Director of Marketing and Brand Management. And then we also have Mitch Ballestero. Did I get it right? All right.
Close enough.
Perfect. All right. So I'm not as good with those Italian names, but they're beautiful once you actually know how to pronounce them. He's the principal consultant and the head of digital marketing analytics for the product team. Ian and Mitch, thank y'all for joining Good Morning Market today. How you doing?
Yeah, the pleasure belongs to us. How are you, Philip?
I am a little under the weather, but I'm making a comeback. I've got my immune system boost, and so we're gonna power through it. But the cool thing is hopefully I'll do a lot of asking questions and then letting y'all drop knowledge bombs on me rather than me rambling. So that's the plan.
And they'll just heal you up immediately, right? The knowledge bombs are going to make you feel immensely better.
Knowledge is power. Hopefully it is also an immune system boost. So let me ask y'all this. We were talking golf earlier. You know, some kids want to be a police officer when they grow up. Some kids, I don't know, they just want to be rich. They're not sure how they're going to do it. Some people want to be a doctor, like Doc McStuffins. When you're telling your own story, did young Ian and young Mitch want to be a data nerd? And if not, how did you end up where you are right now?
No, I don't think that I grew up wanting to be a data nerd, Philip. Ultimately, I went to school studying economics and finance, and I've always been a big numbers and stats guy. What I liked about data analytics is it took a way more personable approach to helping companies become more efficient. And so I think that's why ultimately I got an opportunity to join the data analytics industry and have, never really looked back.
How about you, Mitch?
Yeah, it's kind of similar. Similar background with regards to what I studied in college, finance, business admin, all that. But, with the world that we find ourselves in now, just watching TV, you see all this stuff about, AI and streamlining processes. And it's just data is the new oil, I'd say. So people are finding all kinds of ways to monetize it and deploy custom solutions, and there's a lot of money to be made in this space, and it's pretty much where you need to be right now.
And so, insights to be had.
Kind of a no-brainer.
So you mentioned that, Mitch. Did you watch that speech by Kevin O'Leary that he did with the Montana government? And because he basically said that exact same thing. He said he was investing. He was one of the billionaires investing in these new data warehouses. One of them was in Atlanta, in Montana, and they were doing like a joint press conference. But he basically said, "Data is the new oil." 100 years ago, you would go wherever you could find the black gold. Now it's data, and so that's why he, a billionaire, was dropping big time money to go invest in building data centers. So yeah, right on the money with that.
Absolutely.
So let's jump right into it. And either one of y'all could take this question and we could just kind of ad lib as we're going back and forth, because these are some very powerful, consequential conversations that we're having these days. I'm having them with my clients. I think more and more businesses of every size, from the startup to a business that's been around for 50 years, they're all asking the same questions. I interviewed an Inc. 5000 company last year, BioLite, really, really popular, successful, fast-growing food and beverage company. And now I asked her a question towards the end, like, what would you ask a CEO 2 or 3 years in the future from where you want to be? She said, basically, what kind of data do you look at? Should I be looking at to take my company where it needs to go? So it's a big pressing problem that I think that for those businesses that are really serious about scaling and being the most effective possible, we're all asking it, but it's frankly overwhelming. So let's just talk about what's going on right now before we get into what y'all do. Can either of y'all paint the picture when it comes to just the volume of relevant information, the number of data systems that an average business has in front of them here and now in 2023?
Yeah, Philip, it's immense. Even for a smaller company that has a somewhat limited sales cycle, a product-based direct-to-consumer company that has a one-stop sales cycle. The volume of data they're going to organically collect just from all the different softwares that they're utilizing is going to be immense. And I think a good segue into that conversation too is not like what's going to be the volume of the information, but then how do we clean that up? How do we tread through the data that's not going to be all that prudent and just find the key indicators that are going to make a difference in them growing that business.
Yeah. Well, I go ahead, Mitch. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's, regardless of the size of any firm or regardless of what industry they're in, they are managing a robust amount of data, whether they realize it or not. So I think our mission in simplifying, the increasingly complex world of analytics is to not only get them to realize that having segmented data in various silos, it grows stale, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's accounting data, HR, inventory, sales, it doesn't matter. Unless you're aggregating that data in a meaningful way, it's kind of all for nothing. And so the first part of what we do is getting people to realize that there is a lot to learn from historical data, current data. It's all being organically collected. It's just a matter of weaponizing it.
Right. So just to summarize and distill y'all's point, and I think that most people kind of realize this, but y'all look at a bunch of different businesses and what their systems and reports look like is they have, perhaps terabytes each. Even like an average small business could be dealing with an excess of a terabyte's worth of volume. But like you said, everything's sitting in this silo. Here's QuickBooks, here's the accounting. It doesn't touch or get to talk to sales, doesn't get to talk to e-commerce, doesn't get to touch or talk to social media, and then so on and so forth, web analytics. So even a small sub-$1 million organization could be dealing with an excess of a terabyte worth of data through 5+ silos of systems, and they're sitting on gold. But because once again, how do you even start to parse that mess of a garage in order to organize it, clean it, to where you can actually start to use what is already under your nose?
Correct.
So what kind of a business would want to spend precious time and money tracking more data than like the basics? So here's the thing, like, I don't want to be hyperbolic and say anybody listening to my voice, myself, some mom and pop shop, they're all looking at data. We're all talking to, like, it's tax time. We're all talking to our CPAs. We're all seeing money in, money out. I mean, any business that's actually going to remain in business knows the language of accounting. So we're all data driven, but there's certain businesses that have to make the decision. Am I going to go beyond accounting? Am I going to go beyond maybe the basic stuff within Google Analytics? What kind of a business is the kind of business who should want to do that or would want to do more than that set of data?
I think any business that is growth oriented, right? If you're trying to drive across country, right, and you're doing that in, a Toyota that has a flat tire and, half a tank of gas, that's only going to get you so far, right? So when you're trying to get to your final destination, you need to have the right engine. So being able to consolidate all the information that these companies are looking at and then remap it and revisualize it in a way that A, they learn more about their business and what they need to do with it, but B, allow them to plan for, the future by deploying predictive analytics. It's kind of a double-edged sword in that aspect.
And it sounds so cliche, but I think the answer is true. There's not a specific industry that should be looking at this stuff, although we do have certain facets of industries that we help out more than others. It's really anyone that's looking to grow, anyone that's looking to increase their market share, that's looking to be aggressive in a competitive marketplace. Anyone that's
Right.
looking to, drop a new product listing, or how they're going to change their new ad campaigns or change their brand look. Anyone that wants to make a considerable move and they have a dream and an idea for how they want to better their business, but they just don't know where to start. I think that's where you start to invest in increased data understanding.
Right.
Well, let me help bring this home, and you'll tell me if I'm reading this right. Okay, so a company that wants to grow, I often use the term scale. So businesses are looking to scale.
Yep.
My thought would be, if you're looking to scale and you want to grow significantly beyond, like, at the rate of inflation, like, you want to make big moves. So you probably want to make big moves, a larger volume of moves, and you probably need to be more agile to know when and how to make those larger volume of bigger moves. Because you're like the old adage says, you got to spend money to make money. That means there's more risk involved, because inevitably, if you're serious about growing, you're going to need to spend more money. Number one, you're going to start competing with bigger boys and girls. Number two, so therefore, is that what behooves them to have the right information? Because it's almost just like a due diligence to lower your risk. If you're going to swing for the fences and you want to hit home runs, you got to make sure you know what your pitches are, and you've got to go do the homework to know, like, how exactly do I go hit a home run and not strike out? Because now you're in riskier, bigger boy water territory. Am I right so far on the need for data if you have that mindset?
100%.
You are, yeah. So, I mean, there's thousands of businesses that have been around for 50, 60, 70, 80 years, right? And they've been doing things their way. And sure, it's gotten them to, a very high level of success. But with what everyone else is doing in the data and analytical space, unless you are taking advantage of AI and predictive modeling and things that go along with that, you're going to be left behind.
Yeah.
We're already in that age. So I think that it needs to be a priority, and you need to understand where you've come from, what's gotten you to the point that you're at. And, it's not going to get you the next mile. There's going to be other strategies and other solutions that you need to implement to really stand out in the end.
Yeah, well, just backing up your decision making, just to follow that up, just backing up decision making, right? If you have these aspirations and you're going up against the big boys and girls, like you were saying, you better come correct, right?
Yep.
And I think that's the one way to solidify what either you were thinking or what maybe you might not have been thinking when you went into it.
Oh, and here's the thing is, as you start to play around with bigger numbers of dollars with more zeros behind it, and campaigns or market launches or product diversification, trying to go toe to toe with the bigger boy in the market that you're trying to invade, it becomes less and less fun to say, well, my gut tells me this, especially when, as you get bigger, you're going to have decision teams. It's not just one autonomous person calling all the shots as you become a bigger organization. Now, even if you are the head of the team, you're still going to have a bunch of egg on your face when you wipe out big time with, blundered market entries or product launches, which is why so much of this is important. Now, I wanted to ask you, if maybe y'all could address what I would guess still might be a common notion is, like, I used to work in the technology space. So we would talk with companies, small businesses, about cloud technologies. And, for a good stretch, cloud was like, okay, that's what the big businesses do. They're all high tech. Cloud's not for us. Well, then eventually cloud technologies work their way all the way down to where most small businesses run everything out of the cloud. Almost nothing is local anymore. There's still probably a good segment of people out there listening where they hear data insights and business intelligence. Those all sound like code for big multi-million-dollar companies, tens of millions of dollar companies. Maybe you could just talk to us from the companies y'all helped in the past. Is it exclusively mid-sized corporations? Is it 8-figure, 9-figure organizations, or do you get a more diverse mix of organization sizes?
I think you'd be surprised. I think that we, Bear Cognition, when we released the product, we were targeting smaller corporations, right? Smaller to mid-sized corporations. And as we continue just to have conversations with prospects and clients, I think that we started to learn, oh, wow, there's actually really a need for this across all sectors, across all revenue sizes, all industries. We work with even enterprise level firms now that ultimately, just like Mitch was saying earlier, have been doing a similar process for nearly a decade or so, and just showing them a third person perspective on how they can really transform the way that they've been doing their reporting process. Had a big change in their day-to-day as well, on course, on top of like the mom and pop 5-person operations.
Okay. I mean, that's probably a surprise for quite a bit of folks.
Yeah. And I think it's a lot of that is attributed to the barrier of entry, right? That it takes into getting into this analytical space. Like you own a small to mid-sized business, maybe you do around or $1 million or less a year. You look at, what people are doing with AI and you're like, man, that's going to be too much. That's not going to fit into my budget. I'm not going to get in the weeds with all this. It's too overwhelming. And that could not be more wrong. It doesn't matter, the company size or how many locations you have. What matters is you're a growth oriented person and you have data that you're collecting organically, and it's just about finding the right partner that can supercharge everything that you guys are collecting and all the facets of the business and all your different social media channels, accounting, everything that we've been talking about before. So that's probably the biggest hurdle is actually getting people to understand that this isn't like, this isn't a huge, overwhelming setup or task. Like anyone can take advantage of business intelligence and actionable data.
So so if it is approachable, let's talk about the symptoms that someone, a business leader, might be experiencing, which lets them know that there's actually value in using a dedicated tool rather than kind of going into the silos. Because let's just say it like it is. There's some very high performing, hardworking business leaders that are going into the silos. They will go into web analytics, and then they'll go into accounting, and then they'll go into their reviews, and then they'll go into social media analytics, and they're going into the silos. Maybe to varying degrees, spending different amounts of hours per week. But what would the struggles be where, someone says, well, cool, Mitch and Ian, like I'm going into the data and I'm going into the silos. What struggles might they be experiencing to let them know that their data reporting system is just lacking right now?
I mean, there are several. It's less about the fact that the data is lacking, and it's more about getting them to realize that the data is lacking. You could go in and look at your QuickBooks Online, all your line items, and you can go into Facebook and Meta and check all your followers and all your KPIs, but it's at the end of the day, it's all very surface level static information. Historical data plays largely into that. It's a matter of being able to access the full body of your company data. And a lot of these times, you have all these different companies that offer reporting and analytical tools, but that's not why they exist in the first place. So when it comes to in-depth reporting, getting higher visibility, they fall short, right? So it's just a matter of getting people to realize that and showing them that there's way more to the story than what your current, tech stack is telling you. And so that's what we find every day.
Yeah. And I think that ties so well into how we really help our clients. And I'm sure, Philip, you could say a similar thing with Soul, right? Is that most of our clients come to us with a solid idea, unless they don't really have a lot of information behind data analytics. Most of them are coming to us with a really solid idea of where they want their business to go over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. But what's lacking? I think what's lacking is they're lacking the necessary information that's going to help them back up their decision making for that next step in plan X to drop a new product, or plan Y for a new marketing campaign, or so on and so forth. I think that's a common symptom that I see, is that we have a lot of idea guys, right? Or I want to do this with my company. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And what you really need is someone to take the reporting and the number crunching off of your plate, so you have more time just to digest that information. And something that's going to back up that decision making as well.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it's like you said, data doesn't speak for itself. So someone has to interpret the data, but then data doesn't also then put itself into action and make you money. So then that's the whole thing, is how can you specialize those roles to where both things can happen better and more frequently. But it was interesting what you said, Mitch, about I thought it was being like a simple conversation, like, hey, we can get you a look at the data in a much more efficient manner, which that is one of the values of having a dedicated BI solution.
Yeah.
But you said the other aspect is when you have a dedicated BI tool, it's not just about speed. It's also about the breadth and the depth of seeing the picture of what your business story is telling you.
Yes.
Because you can add in the historical, but then you can now start to get the predictive. You can look at one channel on a deeper level, but then you can look at on a relationship between one channel and then another channel. And then all of a sudden now you have a symphony of information that could start to draw out a story to help you make smarter decisions if you're the kind of business that wants to grow.
Yes. And once you've decided that, you want to start getting more visibility and taking your data and, get, actionable insights out of it, realizing it is one thing, but implementing a solution is a completely other animal. Right. So we meet with companies all the time that have, a data department, quote unquote, right, where it's like one or two people, they're generating all the analytics, they're doing all the reporting, all that. And when you're working with a growth or, a scale oriented company, sure, that data department might be able to service the current client pool that you guys have. But if you're growth oriented, that client pool should change. It should double, triple, quadruple quickly. So it's really only a matter of time before you have to look into hiring an additional analyst or an engineer or right. And so the true utility of Bear Cognition is being able to lean on an entire team of data professionals, and just instead of having to hire a single individual, pay them a full salary, train them, super time consuming, it's costly, and where we stand, it's not the most lucrative way to go about it.
Yeah. Well, so now I'm going to get ready to ask these guys about getting insights from the data, how to wield the tools if you have the right tools. We're going to go down that road and as we finish up the conversation. But first, let's take a quick message from today's episode sponsor, Soul Insights. This episode is sponsored by Soul Insights. Is your business looking to hit the next level of growth? For many businesses, they know they need to spend more on marketing, but don't want to simply shoot in the dark. They want a smart, data-driven path to solid growth. If this is you, then Soul Insights can help you identify, attract, and retain ideal customers. Soul Insights is a strategic marketing agency which helps small and mid-sized businesses understand their best customers, who they are, their shopping behaviors, and acquire new best customers based on that data. And it's all measured and tracked to ensure you get more profit bang for your marketing buck. Head to soulinsights.com right now and take the 90-second quiz to find your path to the next level. So I feel like we've covered a lot of ground when it comes to just like, why do we want to go a level deeper? Why do we want to have dedicated cross-platform tools? Why would we want to have a team of analysts rather than maybe like if I come to this realization, I have to do it on my own, or I want to hire a full-time W-2 person to do this all the time. Now let's talk about, if you got a company that's growing, they're maturing, they're in a competitive market, what's the secret sauce to getting the right data fast? Because I know that's why a lot of my clients tend to want to invest in these tools is they don't want to have to comb through the tea leaves for hours a week. They're like, boom, boom, boom. Let's go make this decision. Let's stop, this campaign. Let's start this campaign. That's what they're looking for. What is some of the secret sauce to being able to get good data that quickly?
Philip, I think it'd be really easy to get overly techie with this answer. So we'll try to go into like the Big Mac sauce without getting too techie. But I think really like our sauce for getting the right data quickly is a team and the tech stack that goes behind the data engineers, the developers, so on and so forth. We partner with a data connection firm that ensures that we're getting connected to the original source of data, no third-party source of data, along with our underlying tech stack that really just ensures that all the information that's coming over to us from that original source is coming over to us in a format that solidifies a unified truth that our analyst team can work with, and then it makes sense for the user, right? I think it's easy to get caught up in, wow, if I just want to get good analytics quickly, I could just learn like a visualization tool and get all my insights that way. But there really is so much more tender, loving care that goes into maintaining our data connections and making sure that everything is sound on the back end, so that it's clear and precise on the front end for the user.
Okay. Makes sense.
Did I get too techy?
No, I don't think so. I think that it's like you said, it's like it's an ongoing process of when you want everything in the right place, but also then it takes ongoing TLC to keep things
exactly
in the right state. So anytime you go take a snapshot is what you're doing. When you go into a reporting tool or BI tool, you're going and you're getting a snapshot. Any snapshot can be reliable because it's getting the amount of data correctly organized. And so then you can go in 15 minutes and do a quick scan and get a mountain of data. But then you also have the ability, if you wanted to spend 2 hours, because it's always being managed to where you have kind of that library to go to for when you need the right information. Is that my tracking?
It's about the upkeep. Like you have all these other analytical solutions providers out there, and they all operate on a very DIY transactional model, right? Here's your login and your password. You've paid for the year. Go in there, set up all your connections, build all the reports out yourselves. There's just so much upkeep with a lot of that stuff. And so, we just try and come in and make that smooth. And we operate on a very much a process oriented approach rather than a transactional one.
Yeah.
There's so much data coming out of all these platforms. It's asinine to think that it's just going to be done perfectly, immediately done. There's always going to be give and take. And I think,
actually, I said it actually made me think of a couple of different things. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Mitch. What I was thinking about, I said about a library, and I think that's part of what businesses will get to the point to is what's the value of a library and a librarian, right? You've got all of these different sources. You got your nonfiction, you've got your fiction, you've got your encyclopedias, and you've got the kids section. You want to be able to say, hey, I want to know this kind of information. And then if you go to a librarian who's constantly keeping all the books in the right shelves and the right sections, then he or she can go like, okay, you need this book. And that's where you kind of let everybody specialize in their thing, is because if you're a CEO or if you're a VP of business development and you're working with multiple sales channels, multiple markets, you're starting to work with bigger and bigger advertising and sales budgets, you can technically do DIY, but it's a job in and of itself once you get to a certain point of maturity, because once again, you're working with that many more systems, which will be siloed if you don't have the right tools. But then there's that human touch. Like you said, it's not just a widget or a plug in, plug out kind of API. It's about having a team who functions as the librarian to make sure that your library of data is always organized, and you don't have to comb through the entire library every time you need to find an answer. You just go to your team and say, hey, I need to know this answer. And because you build that relationship over time, that's that process that can then provide quicker insights from the data library. I think that's maybe the way I would think about it.
Yeah, quicker and personalized. Even our approach to our clients and our library is really just it's a client input driven product model.
Yep.
So, in layman terms, it's really all about, client asks and we deliver. I think that's a different approach than a lot of other analytics companies are going to take in the market, where they're going to have a preset template that all these people's data goes into. There's people out there that are a little nervous that, I don't want to be unheard, and I want my opinions to matter with the reporting that I'm paying for. That's why we're here, right? We take the input of our clients very seriously. Then we take that back to our analytics and development team to make that report possible for the clients.
Right. It's not just one cookie cutter approach to every client. No. It's like managing salespeople. You're not going to manage every salesperson the same exact way, right? Yeah. There's no blanket system that you're going to implement. You need to look at people individually, know what their strengths are, know what their weaknesses are, and, kind of get those to come out accordingly person to person. It's the same exact thing with our clients. Okay. Each one is going to have different priorities and different ways of getting there. And so it's a very, very tailored approach that we take.
Well, let's bring it to the pitch meeting. Let's take it to the boardroom right now. Okay, I'm going to put y'all on the spot. It's time to put you, it's the Shark Tank moment, guys. Yeah. All right, so You're sitting before the CEO and not the VP of marketing. That would be too easy. Not the VP of sales. You're sitting with the CFO. The CEO and the CFO are talking to Mitch and Ian, and they're like, "All right, what's the business case for me? These guys, they have the data, but they don't have a BI tool that works the way you're talking about. Maybe you could provide maybe like a use case or a testimonial on like what's the bottom line here, guys? Talking to that CFO or that CEO."
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple different good use cases that we can address here. One that comes to mind that we've, found on several different occasions would be, giving visibility on higher level, more sophisticated KPIs. For example, let's just say like customer acquisition cost. So let's say, you're an agency and you're running ads on Amazon, Google Ads, Meta, all that. Unless you have a way to aggregate that data in a way that's meaningful and informative, again, it comes back to the siloed stuff. So with this use case in particular, we had someone that, was running ads on Amazon, Google, Meta, all this different stuff. He had no way to aggregate the data to tell him what his average CAC is, customer acquisition cost. So after doing that, we were able to tell him, across Amazon, all your AdWords, all your metadata, your average customer acquisition cost is $100. Giving him that insight, he has now been able to optimize his ad budget, and he now spends $100,000 a month on Google Ads just because he knows where to target the money. Unless you have an entire team that can bring this kind of information to light, you're just treading water.
So I think even when great use case. And even just to segue off that, even when you have a team to do this reporting and analytics for you, right? There's a similar use case where we work with another company that did have a team to build all their insights and all the reports they were sending off to their clients and for themselves internally. But the fault in that is that person's day to day now, like in that 40-hour work week, they're probably spending 32 hours of that 40-hour work week building out the report, conglomerating all the information into something that makes sense and they think is presentable to the CEO and the CEOs that we're pitching to right now. I think when you bring in someone like, So Insights and Bear Cognition, it frees up that time to allow that working space to have a more creative process. They're no longer spending 4/5 of their time, 80% of their time, building the report and making it look sound for their boss so they can present it to them. But they're spending it creatively thinking for, okay, the information's now in front of me. Where should we go buy more ad space, right? What has been the most efficient move that we made in the past 6 months? We can now, it frees up their day-to-day a little bit better than them having to spend 4/5 of their working day making and fine-tuning that report.
I liken it to, once again, when I was back at the business-to-business technology world, is the last thing an IT technician or tech guy wants to do is do break fix. So, what a tech guy wants to hear is he wants to put in solutions within his company so his users and his people inside his company are down less, and he spends less time putting out fires so they could do more innovation projects, which is probably the bottom line value to an IT department in the first place. Is how can we be more powerful and more effective and more agile and more efficient, as opposed to keep the house from burning down. Same thing maybe like with a marketing or business development team. Are you there to make money moves, or are you there to crunch the reports? So I guess it's like you said, if you have the right team behind you, Mr. CFO, Mr. CEO, Mrs. CEO, Mrs. CFO, your full-time hires could spend more time making money moves for the company, which is probably why you hired them in the first place, as opposed to they need to, go blind, with the big, multiple screens looking at Excel spreadsheets, day in, day out, 32 hours a week.
Just drowning in a wall of numbers.
It's like, it's a tale as old as time. Like, how does technological innovation, the big concern is, man, it's just going to put people out of work. I don't think that it doesn't put people out of work, but it frees up more time for just a creative thought process and more meaningful work.
Just the opposite. Less
plugging away. Just the opposite.
So let me ask you this. Let's just say they're buying into the good news that you guys are selling here. It's still a lot of data, and it sounds like a relatively sophisticated tool, although you say it's price approachable for your average business. Well, what is the onboarding process like for the average business? Is it very in-depth, long, painful? Is it you click, that was easy. Like, how does the onboarding process work? If they're like, hey, we want this tool, we want these insights, how do they get a BI tool like Bear Cognition set up?
I think that it might sound a little intensive, couldn't be farther from the truth, Philip. We really spearhead the entire onboarding process and make it really as seamless as it's a pretty intimidating situation. We try to make that process as seamless as it possibly can be. What it looks like is ultimately we hop on a call with, Mitch will be the data consultant, the principal consultant. He'll uncover some pain points that exist and, some recommendations that you guys should probably follow. There's a 10-minute connection process, and we have that, we have our partners to thank for that process. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, once we get connected in that 10-minute connector meeting, a week later, we crank these insight outs, and it's all internally. I don't think that mm-hmm. people should be looking at Soul Insights, Bear Cognition as, man, as another project they have to take on. It's them outsourcing a project that they don't have to worry about anymore, and we're going to take on that workload for them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I'll say from direct experience, so cat's out of the bag is I've onboarded clients with Bear Cognition because Bear Cognition, and I've worked through a couple different solutions. Like, I don't know if y'all know much about Google Data Studio, but when I first started doing this for clients, like I was just building from scratch stuff in Google Data Studio. It was fun to learn that skill set, but not efficient in any way whatsoever and not scalable. And so for those who are wondering, Soul Insights, I do a bunch of strategic things for my clients to help them grow and find their ideal clients. So it's everything from digital targeting campaigns to market research to growth consulting. But I'm not a data scientist. I don't write or implement software. Like, I want to use that, but I want to use it to help my clients bridge the data and then creativity and then go to market with cool stuff and do it confidently and aggressively. I need the right tools for that. So just speaking to the audience is, when I onboarded my clients on the Bear technology, a Bear Cognition platform, it is a pretty seamless process. It is a lot less involved than you would think. And it's really cool because once you're in it, now you have a whole world of exploration that you can do on your own if you're like me, which that's what I do for my clients. Or if you want to just know that it's being taken care of, like I said, it really is an intuitive tool. So I did want to brag on y'all for the process and that y'all have established, which is why I've jumped on the Bear Cognition platform, and now my Soul Perform solution is based off of Bear Cognition.
Philip, you're making us blush. You could have been the use case that we went over only moments ago.
Well, one day I'll be the spokesperson. I'll be your paid endorser guy for Bear Cognition. But for now, this is really fun. So so I think that my takeaways and from why you are still on the call is, data is important. There's too much of it, and it's too siloed to be able to truly go where you want to go if you're a business who wants to grow without business intelligence. It sounds like it's for every size business. It's not just for the big businesses. Big data is here and now for every size, and you either choose to make a symphony or you let it stay in the silos. You either choose to save yourself time and make money moves, or you choose to spend hours and hours and hours trying to read through spreadsheets yourself. So if people want to get started, they're like, hey, I want to go learn more information. I want to go learn more about Mitch and Ian. I want to get on this. What's your recommendation?
Mitch, you want to take it away? Look, I think you head to soulinsights.com. You head to Bear Cognition's LinkedIn page just to learn more. I think you get in contact and start a dialogue with either one of these parties.
Yeah.
And, we'll happily let you know if it's a bad fit, and we'll go from there. Mitch, I don't know if you have anything to add on to that.
No, we work hand in hand. Like we have been talking about this entire time, Bear Cognition is about the accessibility. It's not about having to call an 800 number and be on hold to some call center in Thailand for 30 minutes. It's about being able to call, text, email any one of us, and we'll make time.
Yep,
that's what we do because we have the people.
Y'all didn't mention it. Y'all didn't mention it, but y'all are based in South Carolina. This is not some a company on the other side of the world. So these guys are, for a lot of the people listening, like they're not only stateside, but they're also probably not too far from your backwoods. And, that's another thing that was a net add value for me being a Savannah, Georgia headquartered firm is being able to work with guys who are relatively local. So, that's been a big value add for me. So yeah, I would love to directly help anybody learn more about this kind of technology, because that's the reason that I made it part of my company portfolios, because I know that business intelligence is for every business. It's not for the big businesses. It's just for business. So if you want to learn more, I feel like this is a good thought-provoking conversation to get people started down that road. Mitch and Ian, thank you all very much for joining Good Morning Market. I'm really looking forward to working with y'all all the time on these cool projects.
Yes, absolutely.
Feelings mutual.
All right, take care, guys.
Yep, Philip, have a good one.